Everyone, the unit we'll be doing today is business law, H61700736, and the today's session will be on assignment discussion. So before it's on business law, but before we go through the assignment discussion, I just want to go through all the learning outcomes that we've done to come to this assignment discussion, which is 4 learning outcomes. So I'll just go through briefly on what we did in each learning outcome, so you've got a bit of an idea of what we've done. So in learning outcome 1, we looked at explaining the nature of the legal system. We went to look at what the legal system is in the UK, and it's a set of rules and things like in procedures that govern the jurisdiction administration of the country. We then went on to look at learning outcome 1 in the purpose of law, and we looked at how the law evolved over time. The historical developments in the 17th, 18th century, and looked at common law and equity. We then went on to look at sources of law, primary sources such as legislation, case law, statutes, orders in council, and secondary legislation such as commentaries by legal writers, textbooks, the opinions of legal experts, decisions of courts. And then we went on to look at the divisions of the legal system. So we looked at the Supreme Court being the highest court, and the Judicial Committee of Privy Council, the Court of Appeal, the High Court, the Crown Court and County Courts, and Magistrates' Court and Tribunals. We looked at the court structure with reference to the High Court having 3 divisions: Queen's Bench Division, Divisional Court, and Chancery Division. We then went on to look at the difference between civil and criminal law, and we looked at the examples of civil cases such as family disputes, personal injury, breach of contract, and employment law. We then went on to look at examples of criminal law, things like criminal damage, sexual assault, murder, fraud, money laundering, drug dealing. So these are some of the examples of criminal law. We then went on to look at the justice system in the learning outcome 1, and at the role of government in lawmaking and the justice system, so how the government make laws. We then went on to how the judiciary is organised under the Constitutional Reform Act 2005, and we also looked at the role of the judiciary in UK. So that was learning outcome 1. We then went on to learning outcome 2, which we looked at illustrating the potential impact of the law on business. We looked at the impact of law on businesses and the impact of law on society and citizens itself. We then went on to look at businesses, how businesses will be affected by a number of pieces of legislation. So things like health and safety, employment law, environmental legislation, and maybe legislation that deals with taxes and fines and things like that. We then went on to look at what contract law was, and how a contract is formed, the formation of a contract. We also went to look at the elements of a contract and the terms of a contract, be it express terms or implied terms. We looked at competition law and why that was so important in regards to the Competition Act 1998. We looked at data protection, importance of data protection and GDPR. We looked at the tort of negligence, and how that is an element of how someone suffers in regards to duty of care. We looked at consumer protection and referred to the Consumer Rights Act, and referred to consumer protection, and looked at health and safety and why that's so important within the workplace, and health and safety executive, which is the government agency that deals with all the legislation and guidance on health and safety. We looked at the Consumer Protection Act and product liability and duties of an employer and employees' duties. We also looked at the employment contract and the employment rights and obligations. We went on to look at dismissal in an employer's contract and managing cases of dismissal. We also went on to look at cases of redundancy and how we manage cases of redundancy. We then went on to look at what discrimination law was and how that was implemented in a workplace and how you could manage cases of discrimination and manage cases of health and safety within a workplace, and why it's so important to consult your workers about health and safety culture and how it could be and how to follow the why it's so important to follow health and safety regulations at work. We then went on to look at managing cases of health and safety, so plan, do, check, and act. And then we went on to learning outcome 3, which is looking at examining the formation of different types of business organizations. We looked at the nature and formation of a company. We looked at what is the meaning of a company, so what does a company mean? We also looked at unincorporated versus unincorporated legal structures within learning outcome 3. We went on to look at the different types of business organization and legal structures, such as sole trader, partnership, and registered company. Types of business structures: sole traders, partnerships, and companies. And we went on to look at registered companies, such as a limited company, and corporation tax and dividends. We also looked at limited liability partnership, LLP, and we looked at the classification of companies. So companies on the basis of liabilities, company on the basis of members, companies on the basis of control. We then went on to look at the digital role of Companies House, what Companies House deal with, and their digital role in equivalent to international organisations. We also looked at starting up a business organisation, the importance of that, and the registration requirements. So things like, if you're starting creating a business, you need to have a business idea, you need to assess the situation, a business plan, research your business, register your business, register your business, sort business finances out, get business advice if you can, from a business mentor or an advisor. We also looked at the registration requirements for starting a business, so what you need to do when you register a business within Companies House. We looked at the management of a company, appointment of directors, so what are company directors and what their duties are, appointment of directors, their duties. We looked at company secretary, what are they there for, what is there's need to have company secretaries. We looked at the auditor, the importance of the auditor under the Companies Act 2006, the role of shareholders within the Act 2006, and the role of shareholders within Companies Act. We also looked at the application of company formation in different types of business organizations, so things like raising capital, why that's so important, liquidation, insolvency, ending of a company. We looked at what the liquidation process is. We looked at the history and understanding of relevant development case law and the importance of common law and legislation to the development of company law and business formation. And we looked at the importance of company law today, how it fits in with the legal framework. And then we went finally onto legal learning outcome 4, which looked at recommending appropriate legal solutions to resolve areas of dispute. We looked at the legal solutions for different dispute resolution. So what dispute resolution is, alternative dispute resolution. We looked at areas of employment, health and safety in regards to a business, why it affects the business, and how a business must protect the health and safety of its employees. We looked at the Occupational Health and Safety Act 1985. We also looked at equality of pay claims, so the concept for pay claim for equal pay, and looked at the Equality Act in regards to that. We looked at the Equality Act 2010, so, things like work related as equivalent, they're doing like work of equal value. We looked at compromise and severance agreements and what they are, why they're so important in regards to redundancy agreements. We looked at the areas of employment such as wrongful, unfair dismissal claims and why they're so important and how an individual can claim against wrongful dismissal. We then looked at what's the difference between unfair and wrongful dismissal in regards to learning outcome 4. We also looked at corporate and commercial disputes, why they are so important and why there's a difference between them. We looked at breach of contract, commercial contracts. We looked at how to resolve a breach of contract, so 2 main ways, mediation and litigation. We then went on to look at disputes between directors, causes of director disputes. We looked at commercial property and commercial lease investments, real estate and investment properties. And then we went on to look at the elements of real estate and investment properties and why they're so important in regards to purchasing a property. So that's a quick summary of what we did in learning outcome 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And now we're going to go to the assignment discussion. So the assignment discussion, unit aim is, the aim of this unit is to enhance students' understanding of how business law is applied to the running of a business organisation. So the student is able to gain knowledge and understanding of the laws, of the impact on business operations and decision making. So throughout the unit, students will identify the legal solutions available to business owners and assess the suitability. The unit will also illustrate impact of law on normal business operations and when registering a company, inviting shareholders to invest. They will gain an understanding of the law in regards to market abuse and director responsibility and the application of employment law within a business law context. So what information needs to go on to your assignment at the start? So you need to include the following at the start of the assignment. You need to make sure that you have the name, your name, your registration number, unit level, which in this case is unit 7, business law. So you need to make sure that's clear so the person reading the actual assignment will be able to understand that it's your work and it has your details on and what awarding body it is. So it needs to be made clear. Assignment declaration, and this is a really important part of any piece of work that you do because it identifies that you are meeting the requirements. Okay, so you need to make sure that you are stating that you have you are signing an assignment declaration to identify that you are submitting the assignment and you acknowledge that you understand the definition of it and penalties for cheating, collusion and plagiarism as set out in the policy of whichever awarding body it is. Okay, so you need to declare you are signing this and saying that the work you have produced is not work that has been colluded or taken from somewhere, cut and pasted, and is not plagiarized from somewhere, or the use of AI. Okay, so you really need to make that clear because you will need to make sure you are referencing your work. And I will reiterate this throughout this assignment discussion, the importance of referencing, the importance of having a bibliography, the importance of not cutting and pasting from AI. Avoid using things like that. The AI percentage needs to be below 20%. The plagiarism percentage needs to be below 20%. Okay, so make sure you are, because you are signing a declaration of authenticity to say that you have not copied this work. So you really need to make sure that you are doing that because it would amount to any sort of penalties of collusion or cheating or plagiarism. Again, going back into plagiarism, must submit and complete work that is their own. Plagiarism is presenting the thoughts, ideas and words of another as it were your own. Collusion maker, where students' work is very similar to that of another fellow student. This is an utmost plagiarism, is taken very seriously, and you need to refer to the academic misconduct policy, which is available on Moodle, which is the VLE that we use. So you really, when I reiterate the importance of plagiarism and collusion, you know, it is a serious offence if you commit an issue of plagiarism. So you need to be referring to the misconduct policy handbook in regards to that. Make sure you, if you are doing any work, make sure you reference it. You know, if you are taking out quotes, make sure you paraphrase things and still reference where you've taken it from. Avoid taking other people's work without referencing. So at the start of the assignment, you need the following. So you need a table of contents to identify which parts you've done on which headings, and a font size 12, 1.5 line spacing, page numbers to be inserted, so it's easier that it will be going to in the table of contents where this part of the answer is, and an introduction to make it clear what you've done, what you intend to do, and how it applies to your assessment brief. Make sure you're putting all the assessment criteria AC in headings, okay? And this is really important. You need to make it clear that you are putting all the assessment criteria in headings. So if it asks you explain or define the formation of a company, you need to put that as a heading and then answer the question underneath, okay? So make sure it's clear, avoid using bullet points, but put it as a heading. General information. So the top part of this assignment will be delivered at UK Versity, which is online, which we've spoke about. And this is because it's a part of Pearson. There are a number of texts related to this unit and again found on the VLE. Handouts and briefing sheets will be provided in individual sessions where appropriate, and they are on Moodle, available for you on virtual learning. And the learners must also be asked to register on the Pearson HN platform, from where you will also be able to access any sort of additional study resources for the unit. So you could go onto the website. Another part of important part of it, and we'll go through this quite a lot, is Harvard referencing, the Harvard system of referencing, which is used throughout UK Versity and is used in most institutions to reference your work. As a level 4 student, it's expected that you appropriate academic sources are drawn upon. So after this is why you're taking a higher. So avoid using things like Wikipedia and Google. They're not credible sources. You can add on to them. So credible sources need to be things like, maybe, independent, or if you use The Guardian or gov.uk, they're credible sources. These are sources that you can add on to them and are not credible academic sources. And you need to get used to that because, it's so important that as you carry on further, level 5, level 6, level 7, you are using academic sources, okay? Do not cite unsubstantial web articles. The same applied to the use of A-level textbooks. Of course, articles can be downloaded, for instance, Home Office website, government bodies, Google Scholar. You need to be referencing everything. Get into the habit now so that in the future, as I said, you are going to level 4, level 5, you are referencing your work, because it's so important to reference your work, because you do not want to be done for any sort of collusion or academic misconduct. So make sure you are referencing, and the system that is used at Harvard in referencing system. Learning outcomes for the business law module. So the first one we looked at was learning. So it's just a refresher of the learning outcomes. Learning outcome 1 is to explain the nature of legal system. Learning outcome 2 was to illustrate the potential impact of the law on business law. Learning outcome 3 was to examine the formation of different types of business organizations. And learning outcome 4 was to recommend appropriate legal solutions to resolve areas of dispute. So we're going on to assignment 1 of 2. So there's 2 assignments to do for this module, and the first one we're going to go through now. Submission format for assignment 1 of 2. So it needs to be in the form of an individual handbook. This should be in a written, concise, formal business style using single spacing and font size 12, which I've mentioned earlier. You're required to make use of headings, paragraph, and subsections as appropriate, and all work must be supported with research and reference using the Harvard system, which I mentioned earlier. Please also provide a bibliography using the Harvard referencing system. Recommended word limit for assignment 1 is 2,000 to 2,500, although you are not penalized for exceeding the total word count. Okay, so unit learning outcomes for assignment 1. Learning outcome 1 is explain the basic nature of the legal system, and learning outcome 2 to illustrate the potential law of the impact of law on a business. So these are the ones you'll be using to complete assignment 1. Assignment 1. So it's a scenario. You are working in a Kingsley Napley solicitors firm, which the link is there for, advising new startup companies on legal system and key legislation. So that's what you're doing, that are required to apply. You have been asked to produce a handbook for new companies in order to support your business advice and guidance. Your role is you are working as a newly appointed trainee solicitor and consultant. Part of your role is to develop a handbook which includes the following sections for potential clients and their employees. Understanding the UK legislation and services competencies is critical to your role, as you will be reviewing the services provided by the firm to the new startup companies who may become the firm's clients in the future. So this is your role to do. As a trainee, you are to help. As a new trainee, you are to help you understand the potential impact of law and different acts and legislation for new startup companies. Focusing on small companies, essentially, startups critically evaluate, explain different laws, role of law, and its application for the new startups. You need to evaluate the effective of the legal system and recent reforms introduced in legal services sector in 2021. You are required to produce a handbook must include the following sections. So again, you need a handbook. Again, you need a contents page. Again, you need to have it structured well with headings, and you need to be answering each one of these elements, okay, in the sections. So the first part of the handbook will be this part. So this is number 1. Okay, this is 5 parts to it, okay? You need to, firstly, explain. You need an explanation of the legal system. So you need to highlight this as a heading. So number 1, do not change the command words, leave it as they are. An explanation of the legal system. Number 2, you need to have this as a heading and look at an overview of the sources of law. Number 3, you need to have an explanation of the role of government in lawmaking as a heading. And number 4, an explanation of key legislation that a new business needs to be aware of as a heading. You need to have number 5, explain and evaluate the potential implications of law on a business, for example, copyright law, contract law, and employment law. So, learning outcomes and assessment criteria. Now, to get a pass for learning outcome 1 and learning outcome 2, you must complete the relevant elements. So P1, explain the different sources, okay? P2, explain the role of government in making and how statutory and common law is applied in the justice courts. Now, to get a merit for this part of it, for learning outcome 1, you need to evaluate the effectiveness of the legal system in terms of recent reforms and developments. And you need to make it clear that this is a merit one that you have done. So it needs to be a heading and identifying that. For learning outcome 1 and 2, for the distinction one, you need to provide a coherent and critical evaluation of the legal system and law with evidence drawn from a range of different relevant examples to support judgments. And here you need to make it clear that it's a distinction element, okay? For learning outcome 2, you need to illustrate the potential impact of law on a business, okay? For P3, you need to, using specific examples, illustrate how company, employment, and contract law's potential impact on the business. So that's looking at learning outcome 2, okay, to answer that. To get a merit for that, you need to make it clear that it's a merit criteria, and you need to analyze the potential impact on business through differentiation between legislation, regulations, and standards. So this is the learning outcomes and assessment criteria that you need to look at. And all this is available for you on Moodle to go on to. So an example of question in question 1 that we've used, okay? So firstly, an explanation of the legal system. And I've looked at that, I've just picked that out. So it gives you an idea of where you can find that. And where you can find that is learning outcome 1, slide 6 onwards. So you need to be looking to do this answer. So this is your heading. To answer this question, you need to be looking at learning outcome 1, slide 6 onwards. You need to make sure that you are answering what the question is asking you. For all them 5 parts of the handbook that you have to do, each part. So this is each part, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So each of these parts, you need to do this in the form of 2,000 to 2,500. So this is your word count for that, okay? So it's sufficient words. You've got 5 parts. You can do it in 500 words each, okay? Each part can be done in 500 words each, okay? So an explanation of the legal system, sources of law, next one, make sure it's a heading so that the person marking it is clear. And also make sure that you have completed the merit and distinction criteria if you want to complete them, okay, to make sure you've done them. If you only complete the pass criteria, you will get a pass. If you complete the pass merit criteria, you will get the merit. If you complete pass, merit and distinction criteria, you will get the distinction. So you need to make sure that you have looked at the command words and do not change the command words where they say explain, evaluate, provide, analyze, describe. So, you know, do not change. And that towards the end is more of a discussion for you to have a look at in regards to command words, okay? And I'll give you an example where you can actually find it, slides 1 to slide 6 onwards in learning outcome 1. Now, that was assignment 1 of 2. Now we're looking at assignment 2 of 2. Submission format for this assignment 2 of 2 again is size 12, single spacing, and it needs to be 2,000 to 2,500 words, and the use of Harvard referencing, and make sure there's a bibliography as well at the end. In this assignment 2, you will be looking at learning outcome 3, which is to suggest appropriate legal solutions to business problems, and learning outcome 4, which is to recommend appropriate legal solutions based upon alternative legal advice provided. So this is for assignment 2. Assignment 2 is a scenario. You have submitted your assignment 1 and your manager is happy with your effort. The manager has now assigned you to advise startup companies signed up as clients in the FY 2022 who are now running businesses in Manchester area. There are 3 case studies to review which represent various legal issues and potential areas of problem which can affect the startup of businesses. So there are 3 case studies we're going to go through. The areas to be considered where law and legislation is appropriate to the startup of the companies can be applied. So you need to look at company law, including insolvency and liquidation. For the 3 scenarios, you need to be looking at contract law, breach of contract, damages and claims for the 3 case studies, and employment law, including ADR, which is alternative dispute resolution, for the 3 case studies. Your role: for each case study presented, you apply and justify a legal solution to the problem using these 3 areas: company law, contract law, and employment law. So keep referring back to them. Your role: for each case presented, you apply and justify a legal solution. Case study 1. John works as a salesman in the BlueTech Solutions store. His contract of employment provides for an annual salary of £10,000 and commission payments at 9% on any tech products he sells. In the last 3 years, the commission payments have averaged £11,000 per annum. In 2015, due to intense competition in the local market, the business faces financial difficulties. The manager, Susan, informs John about the situation and requests him to forego his salary for 2015, 2016, and 2017 and rely solely on commission payments. Susan explains that this is necessary for the business to survive and prevent substantial debts to creditors. John agrees to the contract variation along with other staff members. Carrying on with the scenario, by 2016, the economy begins to improve. With the government incentives for the tech industry, BlueTech Solution manages to trade its way out of the challenging times and generate healthy profits. Given the circumstances, John believes he should receive his wages for 2017 in addition to his commission as agreed in 2015. He also wonders if he can claim the wages he agreed to forego in 2015 and 2016, considering the company's profits. In the context of employment law, including alternative dispute resolution, I would advise John that his ability to obtain wages for 2017 and claim for the foregone wages from 2015 and 2016 would depend on the specific terms of the contract. and subsequent agreements or negotiations and applicable employment laws in the jurisdiction. It is advisable for John to consult an employment law specialist or explore alternative dispute resolution options to seek a resolution in this matter. So this is looking at employment law issues, contract, and it's looking at issues around, whether there would be any form of breaches in his contract or any sort of terms in his contract that have been done. So you need to look in regards to the situation in regards to contract and employment, and also maybe a little bit of company law in there as well. This is case scenario number 2. After conducting online research, Sarah decided to contact Sky Broadband to arrange the purchase and installation of an internet package priced at £35 per month, which included phone lines with a monthly line rental fee of £11. An engineer arrived scheduled at 9 AM and installed the internet service. However, the engineer faced difficulty in locating the telephone point on the switchboard and suggested that he would contact his supervisor and returned later. Sarah patiently waited until 5 PM. On that day, the engineer never came back to complete the work. Frustrated, she contacted Sky Broadband to lodge a complaint about the engineer's behaviour and the fact that she still did not have a working phone line. After several calls and emails, another engineer was sent to fix the phone line, but it took approximately 3 weeks. When Sarah received the invoice from the Sky Broadband, she noted that she had been charged for the entire package from the day the internet was installed, including the monthly phone line rental. Sarah is extremely upset as she believed that the phone line should have been charged only after 3 weeks. To analyse the legal position of the service provider, Sky Broadband, and the consumer, Sarah, based on the contract law principles, it would be necessary to consider the terms and conditions of the contract between both parties, including any specific provisions related to installation, service delays, and billing. Additionally, it is crucial to examine any representations or assurances made by Sky Broadband during the sales process regarding the installation and billing arrangements. The legal position will also depend on statutory consumer protection laws that may be applicable in the jurisdiction. So that would be going back to the first element, looking at the company law. You could employment and looking at contract law in regards to case study 2. In order to provide a comprehensive analysis of the legal position, a thorough review of the contract law is really important. Applicable laws and relevant case precedents would be required. So you need to be looking at case laws in regard to this. It is advisable to Sarah to seek legal advice or explore alternative dispute resolution options. So ADA might be an option, a resolution between Sarah and Sky Broadband to address any sort of concerns and seek any sort of resolution. But you need to look at the terms of the contract again in Sarah's instance. But also when you're doing this part of the assignment, you need to make sure that you are using legal authorities, legal cases, and identifying her legal position as well. Case study 3. So case study 3 is Security Shield Limited, is a security company that provides security guards to various businesses, one of which is your client. The company employs 50 individuals and its primary cost is the wage expenditure for its employees. Unfortunately, Security Shield Limited encountered a significant setback when its largest customer defaulted, leaving them with a bad debt of £100,000. Despite recovering their previous level of turnover over the past 3 months, the company now relies on 10 customers instead of 4. The cash flow reduction resulting from bad debt forced Security Shield Limited to delay payments to their creditors, one of whom filed a winding up petition 2 weeks ago. The court has scheduled a hearing in 3 weeks to determine whether a winding up order will be issued. In order to avoid compulsory winding up, the client has several options to consider. Firstly, negotiating with creditors. Security Shield Limited can engage in discussion with its creditors to establish alternative payment arrangements, such as extended payment terms or revised repayment plan. Demonstrating a commitment to honouring outstanding obligations can help alleviate concerns and potentially halt the winding up proceedings. Securing additional financing. So the company may explore options for obtaining additional financing, such as securing a loan or seek investment from external sources. This infusion of funds can improve cash flow and enable the timely settlement of outstanding debts. Implementing cost reduction measures, Security Shield Limited could analyse its operational costs and identify areas where expenses can be reduced without compromising the quality of services provided. This could involve streamlining operations, renegotiating supply contracts, or optimizing internal processes. Seeking legal advice. It is crucial for Security Shield Limited to consult with legal professionals who specialize in insolvency and corporate law, which in this case you would be looking at company law. They can provide guidance on specific circumstances and potential legal remedies available to avoid winding up. By exploring these options and appropriate actions, Security Shield Limited can potentially prevent the compulsory winding up order and work towards stabilizing its financial position. It is advisable for the client to consult with a qualified legal and financial advisor to determine the most suitable course of action for their specific circumstances. You now need to file a report to your manager outlining the advice and assistance given in relation to the local client, companies for the legal problems faced in the case 1, 2, and 3. So you're looking at all the 3 case studies. Your report should include the following. It should include, firstly, suggest an appropriate legal solution for each of the case studies. So this needs to be done. These 6 parts need to be done for each of the case studies, 1, 2, and 3. You need to suggest, number 1, an appropriate legal solution to each of the problems. Okay. You need to make sure you are using the law in regards to it, so company, employment, and contract. Secondly, you need to, for 3 of the case studies, provide justification for your advice and the solution given, okay, and why you've done that. Justification means why you need to do that, why you've said this, and why would it be a good solution and in regards to the advice and solution. Then look at number 3, you need to analyze the assessment of the positive and negative impact of the solution you are suggesting to the business. So you need to look at the positive, why, you know, what are the positives if you provided a solution of ADR, what are the negatives of it, you know, for the business or for the individual. And then number 4, you need to recommend legal solutions based on different countries' legal system and or alternative legal frameworks. So you need to look at the solutions on different countries' legal jurisdictions or ADR, alternative legal frameworks. Number 5, you need to compare and contrast the effectiveness of these recommendations, why you've used them, why do you think they'll be more effective, or whether they won't be effective. You need to compare and contrast that. Then number 6, finally, you need to critically review and evaluate the use of appropriate legal solutions that you've suggested in comparison with alternative legal advice. So why you've suggested appropriate legal solutions and why in comparison with alternative legal advice, ADR. So this needs, all these 6 parts of this need to be done for for all 3 case studies, 1, 2, and 3. You need to be looking at all them. The learning outcomes and assessment criteria for the pass for learning outcome 3, you need to look P4, and you need to make sure you've identified which ones you've done. You need to explore how different types of organizations are legally formed. P5, to explain how business organizations are managed and funded. M3 for learning outcome 3, and make sure it's clear it's M3. Analyze the advantages and disadvantages of formation of different types of organizations. D2, critically analyze the formation of different types of organizations. And D3, to critically evaluate the effectiveness of legal solutions, legal advice and support for dispute resolution. And that is for learning outcome 3. For learning outcome 4, recommend appropriate legal solutions to resolve areas of dispute. P6 is to recommend legal solutions for resolving a range of disputes, using examples to demonstrate how a party might obtain legal advice and support. To get the merit assessment criteria, you need to also look for learning outcome 4 to compare and contrast different types of legal advice and support for dispute resolution to make appropriate recommendations to legal solutions. And you need to bear in mind that when you are doing all this learning outcomes and assessment criteria and what needs to be included in your report, you need to take into account all 3 case studies. So learners must show knowledge and understanding of the subject area. They must provide references to relevant case law where required or legislation where appropriate. Be able to support your answers and show that you've got wider reading appropriately. So if you've done any extra reading around the area, make sure you're identifying that you've done that. Referencing for assignment 1 of 2, you need to use and cite a range of case law, academic and reliable sources, and a comprehensive Harvard reference list at the end of the work. And that is for both assignments, assignment 1 and 2. You need to be using the Harvard system of referencing, as we mentioned earlier, the importance of referencing so it doesn't identify any sort of collusion or any sort of plagiarism. You need to be using the Harvard system of referencing. End of the assignment, make sure you do a conclusion and a reference list bibliography is provided. So make sure you are answering at the assignment 2 for the case studies and assignment 1 with the actual assessment that you have to do in the report. General advice, and this is Pearson, as this is the awarding body for business law, you should consult the grading criteria, which is on Moodle for you to look at. Look at the learning outcomes above. You need to demonstrate that you have met these when completing the various tasks. The work must be presented in English, standard English, word processed, double line space, and show clarity of presentation and be coherent and organized. Headings, the structure, an academic piece of work, avoid using websites like Wikipedia or Google. The work must demonstrate relevance and breadth of reference to appropriate literature. So you need to be referencing your work. You need to be making sure you're not cutting and pasting your work. Referencing, again, must be Harvard system of referencing. Use the school referencing. The booklet guidelines on referencing in academic writing for guidance is provided by Pearson, but also is provided on UK Varsity's website on referencing. Word count, so an assignment can be submitted with a word length of plus or 10% of the specified word length. For example, if your assignment is 2,000 words is set, then students could submit work with a word total with a range of 1,750 to 2,000 words. The word count excludes quotations and references. It does not include the reference list or appendices. So make sure you are sticking to the word count, make sure you are referring to the word count, and make sure you are, if you have tasks, make sure you are using the similar wording for each task. Confidentiality. You should ensure that all your work you submit maintains confidentiality and anonymity. In the interest of confidentiality, please ensure that your work does not identify individuals, either colleagues or students or organizations. You may submit copies of work prepared during the course of your work, but names should be removed. And that's important due to confidentiality and GDPR to not, make everyone anonymous, but not include people's names and details in that. So these are the guidance from Pearson, and they are also on Pearson's website that you could go on to, as that is the awarding body. Summary. So make sure you start with an introduction, conclusion, again, referring you to that, the importance of having an introduction, introducing the area. Make sure, again, and I will reiterate this, and I will do this so many times, Harvard referencing system for referencing. And you can also refer to sites that may help you, such as, Neil's Toolbox. There's sites such as Cite Me that will be able to help you in regards to referencing your work. and make sure you reference it accordingly in text and in the bibliography. If you're using diagrams, make sure you reference them accordingly. Make sure your bibliography reference list and it is in alphabetical order. What I've realized when marking students' work is that they have followed the bibliography on and used the Harvard system of referencing, but they haven't put the stuff in alphabetical order. So please try to put them in alphabetical order. When you are referencing and using internet source, make sure that you have the referencing to say when you've accessed the source in brackets to show that you are using the Harvard system. Try to use more examples when explaining certain concepts. For example, when looking at theories or case law, try to use more examples because some of the in the assignment 2 is asked you to refer to legal authorities and legal cases. Make sure you are using assessment criteria AC as a heading for each part of the task. For example, if you are looking at task 1 and looking at AC 1.1, each part of the task should be done as a heading and answered under the heading. So make sure you are using them as headings and answering under the headings and not moving away from that and changing the command words. That's really, really important that you stick to what the wording is. You need to be referring to the indicative content all the time and checking the word count. Useful tips. Read the task carefully. Focus on what the task is asking you. Focus on the detail of the task. Do not answer as you think you should answer. You look at the wording, the command wording. You know, command words can be things like explain, define, describe, 70 to 100 words, assess, examine, analyze, clarify, 100 to 125 words, compare, contrast, critically evaluate, 150 to 200 words. Make sure you are looking at the command words and not moving away from writing words that are similar to the command words, because that assessment needs to stick to the command words. Again, Harvard referencing needs to be in, if it's in text, it needs to be the author and the date and the style. So the author would be Slack example, Johnston Brandon 2011. So that would be the in text in the assignment that you are doing. And then the full reference of the book, the Slack Johnston Brandon, would be in the footnotes. Would be in the bibliography or reference list at the end. In the reference towards the end, it will come as shown as the full text. Word limits, again, stick to your word limits. Give proper headings and subheadings if needed. Avoid using bullet points. Make sure your document looks presentable and professional. And the word limit is that the first for the assignment 1 is 2,000 to 2,500 and assignment 2 is 2,000 to 2,500. So make sure you are looking at the word limits. Plagiarism on tolerance similarity must be below 20%. So make sure you are sticking that. Some preliminary before we finish, I want to show you the assignment as well, brief. It is on Moodle. You need to make sure you are not copying and pasting work, as it is plagiarism and would lead to academic misconduct. And you will say, oh, throughout the assignment discussion, Shazia has mentioned so much on academic misconduct, but it's a big, sometimes it's a big part of someone's assignment where we could actually see if they've done their work through AI because of the colour of the actual work. So you need to make sure that the assessor, you know, that the work you submit is your own work rather than, you know, if you're using a quote, reference the quote that you're using. If you're paraphrasing something, you know, make sure that you are paraphrasing it properly. Do not just change the wording because sometimes it will come up as fully plagiarized on AI. Make sure, again, you reference your sources. Make sure you check your grammar and spelling, and that's been a big issue as well. Avoid using American style English and check your grammar, things like organizations with an S, not a Z. So make sure you're checking your grammar, your academic, you know, knowledge, but also your spelling, your structure, your language is really important. Again, refer to ebooks and journals on Moodle for this unit and any queries you have in regards to doing this assignment, because we've done all the learning outcome 4s. I summarized them at the start of the assignment. Any questions you have, you've got to email learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk. Submission of your assignment is to be done now we've finished the unit, 2 weeks after that, and you have the submission to, it needs to be submitted to learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk. So now that we've done all the learning outcome 1 to 4, this is the assignment discussion, and this is the end of the unit now. I just want to share with you the assignment brief, so you've got a little bit of an idea of what it looks like when you go onto Moodle. Wait a minute. So that's assignment brief 1. Okay. So just to share that with you now. So this is assignment brief 1. Okay, so this is right, okay, so sorry about that. So this is what it will be looking at on Pearson. So this is your assignment brief. This is on Moodle for you to have a look at, and this is part law and legal system, assignment 1 of 2. Everything on here has been done in the assignment discussion, but if you want to have a look at it, it's been IV'd, it's gone through, and it's an assignment that you need to do in regard. So general information, introduction into the assignment, submission format, the Harvard referencing, plagiarism, collusion, reading lists and websites, and then it's looked at the learning outcomes 1 and 2, the scenario, what your role is, what you are expected to do, and your word count. So these are the parts that you are expected to do, and your word count is on there as well. This is the learning outcomes and assessment criteria that you need to follow, and general advice regarding the assignment. So this is for learning the assignment 1 that you need to do, and you need to stick to the word count of 2,000 to 2,500. So this I've gone through in the assignment discussion. I'll just share the second one with you, which is assignment 2. I'll just share that. And this is assignment 2, and this again is in the assignment discussion as well. So you're looking at assignment 2 here. We're looking at legal solutions in assignment 2. Again, it goes through an introduction of the module, the unit itself. It tells you the general information and where to get the information from, and what is expected. So the submission format, what is expected of you in a report format, and you've got individual case studies to refer to, the 3 case studies, and again the font size 12, and the recommended word count 2,000 to 2,500 for this part of the assignment. So assignment 1 was the same. Assignment 2 is 2,000 to 2,500 for this part of the assignment. So do not, it says you will be penalized for exceeding the total word count. The Harvard referencing system, again, importance of that. Plagiarism and collusion, reading lists and website textbooks that you can refer to, and web links there as well for assignment 2. And then it goes into assignment 2, where you've got to look at learning outcome 3 and 4, and then what is expected of you, and to take into account company law, contract law, employment law in regards to case study 1, case study 2, and case study 3. And everything over here was on the slides. Okay, so you can, and then these are the elements of it here. You need to make sure you're referring each of these elements to learning outcome, to the 3 case studies for assignment 2. And then learning outcomes and assessment criteria is just listed there for the assignment 2, and general advice and guidance for you in regards to the assignment 2. So make sure you are referring to the guidance on there. Okay, this guidance will help you, and it's part of Pearson. If you need to go onto Pearson's website to have a look, it's part of that. Most all the information through business law module is on the Moodle website. Okay. Now we've finished the learning outcome, we've finished the unit, we've finished the learning outcome now as well, all 4 learning outcomes, and we've finished the assignment discussion. If you have any issues, email learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk. Submission of the assignment will be on learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk. Thank you for attending today's session, and good luck with completing your assignment. Thank you.